This is the and Sheldon, we worked at Tractor Central, and he knows Gary and I. These years. Yeah. Fine thing, though.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bad.
Oh, you're just missing this one.
We do have something, this is my second.
Another one.
You might have to leave at 10 because I got the city too.
Well, we're, almost time, well, Al Junior was supposed to be here. And we were gonna put him on first because he's got to leave for another meeting. Are we on?
What's he here for?
Yes, I think so. This is Tom.
Okay. Tom,
Yeah, good morning.
good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm home with my mobile IV chemo pump for the next day and a half, but her and I are getting along just fine so far.
Well, that's good. Well, we're gonna.
Yep.
Morning, Bill.
Morning.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock and I'll call the meeting of the Emergency Services Committee to order. First thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from April 10th.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the minutes from April 10th. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, public comment. Public comment is closed. Tom, you're on.
All right, I'll see how I can operate here on I might lose a picture of me here while I'm looking at my report. So bear with me a second here. Got to get to the packet. Well, that's outstanding. Anyhow, I can probably do a lot of it from memory. On the emergency management side, the HMP or Hazard Mitigation Plan grant from FEMA has been recalled as of now. That's a BRIC grant. It's through FEMA. Not only did they put those grants all on hold, but they fired their new administrator last week. So that wasn't going the way they wanted it to. So we'll see what comes of that. We'll be on hold and not out of compliance because they took the grant away. It wasn't something on our part. So we should be okay there. The other, I know I didn't have the packet up just because she sent out a second one.
Resignation,
What's that?
resignations from those two boards.
I resigned my positions with all the state work groups, WEMA, the Emergency Management Association, Board of Directors. I told the state I have enough of my own things going on. I've been on those committees for the benefit of the county for probably close to 10 years, most of them. Disaster Assessment Work Group, Plan of Work Work Group, Funding Advisory Group Work Group, and the WEMA board. So I removed myself from all of them so I can concentrate on stuff I got going there. Down at the ambulance, you can see the issues we had to put a fuel cap and it ended up, there was a cracked line that was making the engine light come on and highway shop's gonna fix that. 252 hit a deer, minimal damage to the rear fender well and fender chrome, probably not fixable. I got some pictures finally, so I could get an estimate, but I doubt we'll turn it in. Preparing all the rigs for the 250 If you put it in drive, the doors lock. If you put it in park, the doors unlock in the front. But if you walk away from the vehicle and hit the fob to open the door, it opens the passenger door, but not the driver's door. So they have to crawl in through the back to get in or crawl over the top of the seats to unlock it. So that will be going into highway shortly so they can get that part ordered. We have all new radios for the rigs and mobile radios, both mobile radios and portables. Working on dates to get those installed. Adopt a Highway Cleanup Day was last Saturday. They had about 10 participants from the EMS that went out and cleaned the area from about Jeff Wallace's restaurant westward to where I call Jump River Roses used to be. And that they collected a pile of garbage. So that was a good event. I have not talked to anybody about how many snakes they located, because that was a big issue last year. A couple of people come flying out when they hit a nest of snakes. So I think we were better prepared for that. So that's all I put in my report for now, other than I'll be off intermittently because of course the cancer treatments I'm taking. And it sounds like I'll probably be off this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, back on Friday, because I have to go get my pump taken off Thursday. So that's hopefully the schedule moving forward. I'll just have those 3 days where I won't be feeling too hot. So that's the plan. Any questions?
Hey, Tom, I was just wondering, couldn't they open that door with the key?
They can, yes, if they have the key. See, sometimes they'll leave it running. They take the fob with them.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So like if they pull up to Quick Trip to run in and get a cup of coffee or something, they'll take the fob with them so they can lock it up. And they found out that doesn't work. So they're just not doing that for now. So they're shutting it off, taking it. They're used to driving. Was that Tom that asked that question?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we ran diesels for years. So it was better to leave them run and shut them off.
Sure.
And they haven't, that truck has less than 3,000 miles on it. And they're not really used to the fact that they're gas engines now and they don't have to do that as much as long as they shut all the inside stuff down. So they'll get used to it.
And we're a fob society. Keys far.
Oh yeah, you can take them with you everywhere. So, any other questions on that? If
Okay,
not,
do you have any training requests?
not out of county. We're doing a few things internal. Gonna hopefully be starting finally. The company that does our billing finally got their training put together for narrative writing and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll be getting started on that stuff soon. And the other new thing with EMS is end of March every year, the state comes up with a new scope of practice, what every level of EMS can do within their level. So they added a few things to the EMT and the first responder. So I have my thoughts about it all put together. I got to meet with Dr. Caprillion to get his approval. And I emailed the state because I couldn't find the form online that we're supposed to sign that tells the state what we're going to do. And then it gets approved by the state. The guy got back to me yesterday and said that it hasn't been created yet. We were supposed to approve our scope of work in April. They still don't have the form on for us to do that. So they're not waiting on me. I'm waiting on them, which is a good feeling.
Okay, let's move on to payment of the bills. Any questions on the bills?
Motion to approve.
A motion made second to approve the bills. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Budget review. This is the new budget report thing that they have to do starting in May. And I guess, Tom, do you have that with you or?
I do have it with me.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have to do one of these budget reports for each of our budget lines. And I think there's 5 of them. I wasn't able to make the training with Ashley Heath. She was out the day I could go, and then I was out a couple of days when she had it. So I talked to her and I kind of winged it. I think I got it pretty damn close, as I could. What you'll notice in the budget information for 2025, and I don't know why it did this, but when I put in on the right-hand column, the budget review, or excuse me, revenues, I guess it's the same on the top one too, but on the budget revenues, that shows what I expect to get for the year. What I've got so far is the year to date, and I think that's finance has been extremely busy. They just haven't got the data entry part done. And then the projected revenues and all of my budgets when I did this, that's what I still expect to get in budgets. So in payments. So it's subtracted to 7068 for the 128, the $1,284,054, and that's what comes up to the bottom number. And it did that both on expenditures and revenue side. And Ashley, I didn't get a chance to ask if it was supposed to do that or if I maybe did something I wasn't supposed to.
Just a second.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that's maybe farm to them. But I think it's maybe they don't know. To get that, but this should be what your total revenue for
For the year, yep.
Yeah, Tom, it's, but we went over quickly. The projected revenue should be the total revenue you're expecting in that account for the year.
Okay.
So it shouldn't be subtracting that year-to-date revenue from that.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, it should not.
I think now thinking back, I think that was me because I looked on the budget report and it does that. It takes your budgeted revenues, your year-to-date comes out and it leaves you with a number that's projected yet. And I'm sure I copied those numbers verbatim and that's why I did that. I'll fix that before. If you want me to fix this when I can and resubmit it, or
No,
the numbers are there. It just, the projected is the same as the budgeted.
right.
Yeah.
And so, well, if you look at that, you can see what he shows 23 and 24 actuals, revenue and expenditures. And that's right off of the statements. And then the budget information, the other stuff historical. And then like Tom was saying on this stuff, so you show what's been spent so far. And then projected expenditures, again, is what the total is for the year. So like under budgeted expenditures, Tom went over this with me, well, before he left. So the 1,993,727, they're still expecting to spend that much. But we spent this much so far, the 592. And the same thing for budgeted revenue. The projected revenue should be the 1,284,054. But again, this is a new form. I'm sure a lot of this is going to be, because this has to go to finance and a lot of them. It's the first time they've done it. And again, it's not. And then you see right under there, it says general ledger counts of concern, check if no concerns, and he's got no concerns there.
Right. My only concern was down below that no receivable as of today were in the budget. So that was my only concern, and that's not through my office. I did the same thing. The next one I have in line is 255, which is emergency management.
Right.
Again, same issues. We did get about 32,000 in revenues that hasn't been entered yet, so it's real close to meeting our budget. Excuse me, our grant money is already here. It just hasn't been entered yet. So that'll get put in hopefully before next month, and this revenue side will look better. But same thing, no concerns in that budget. 254 is the LEPC grant. That's the grant for either computers or computer equipment. Last year I bought a $3,180 printer. I don't believe we've gotten that check yet. The actual revenue that's in there is from the year before. So that was in 24, excuse me. This year, now I got to think, what month is this? Yeah, that was from last year. So this year I'll apply. I don't know where that $500 came from. That's in there. But again, no concerns. That's a really small budget just to buy a laptop or something like that if something in my office goes out of kaputs. 253 is the actual LEPC budget. If you look at 2024, out of that $6,753, excuse me, where's my budget information? Actual expenditures was 6753.62. 196 of that went to put an ad in the paper for that we have to do every June. The other 67 and 53, excuse me, about gets transferred to the emergency management budget and goes toward my wages for the planning part for LAPC. So again, no concerns. And it's not that I'm not using that budget. It just doesn't show that it gets shifted over to another budget. 252 is the ambulance grant. The reason the budget was 65 is that's what we got the year before. Historically, that's about what we've gotten from the state. This year we got an additional $50,000 in our ambulance grant to use for equipment, which is good because those handheld radios we talked about that were going to be quite expensive around that $50,000 mark. We'll probably buy them in shifts. So it's not that much all at once, but that will help pay for that without having to go to levy. That one also I have no concerns because it's way over what we're used to getting. And that's what I got for that report. Those reports.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, now on the last page, we have to approve this.
Yeah, you have to approve each one and then it goes to the finance committee.
Right, and we only have one approval.
It can be just one signature for all of them.
Okay, yeah. So any questions for Tom on that? Again, some of these numbers are not quite right, but they'll get fixed next time. And again, there's no concerns. The whole purpose of this was to make sure that, you know, if there's a big deficit or anything coming up that we notified right away. So then this report, Tom has to fill it out, comes to here, we have to approve it, and then it goes to finance. And finance has to look at it. Any questions on that for now or anything? Okay, and any other questions for Tom?
I just got a couple comments for you folks before you move on, and then I'll be out of your hair for a month. We got this email from Brian Coggins from the, I would guess the people that are overseeing the closeout of the books at 24. There's 2,900 in the emergency management budget that they're looking to move some money to from contingency. I don't have a problem with that one. The LEPC grant, the money down there, that shouldn't be, and I don't know why. I plan on joining that finance meeting tomorrow afternoon to see where that's supposed to be coming from. And then the ambulance equipment grant, they're looking at doing contingency money for that. I don't know why they're not using the non-lapsing rolling fund instead. So I'm going to be there to ask that question. So unless you guys got any other questions, that's the three budgets that went over in my house, and two of them I don't know why. So I did not see that in my balance sheets that I was over that far, but I'll go back and look at those also before tomorrow afternoon. Questions about that?
Nope. Any other questions for?
A question. I just got a comment, Tom. This is Kurt.
Yes, sir.
Doug Pavlik and I have been working with the the maintenance company that's doing the work on Greenwood Manor after the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the director of maintenance who, works all over the United States and for this group that owns Greenwood Manor. And he said that, the response that they received from Ladysmith and Russ County after that fire was the best he had ever seen and any instance he'd ever been at. And he said he'd literally been at hundreds of, different fires and hundreds of different catastrophes. And he was just totally impressed, truly impressed with the response that he received from everybody and how the situation was handled.
Well, that's great news. The staff of mine and fire, everybody worked together. Public health did a great job with the sheltering. So they took care of more of that. And I wasn't, well, we started to get engaged about midnight, and I started making calls, as Ashley can attest, at 2:00 in the morning, because that's when she got her first one from me. But yeah, and in our after action, again, it showed that our planning, our exercising, our training, when you have a real event, then things fall together pretty good.
Yep, he was impressed. He said that multiple times, so I wanted to pass that on to
Well,
anybody.
thank you. I appreciate that. My staff did a great job.
Any other questions for Tom? Comments? Okay, well, we'll probably be talking to you tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I'll be back online. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks,
And
Tom.
gals. And gals. Leave out the gals, for gosh sakes.
Okay, who approved minutes? Was that you?
I think that both of us,
Yeah.
And you seconded it?
whichever.
Okay. I'll need a motion to approve the budget report. Because then, like, say, I have to sign it and it goes to finance. Okay, motion's made and seconded to approve the budget report for the ambulance. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor say aye. Both say no. Motion carried. Okay, we're going to switch things around for a second, because Mr. Christensen is here too. We're going to do number 6, because he has another meeting to get to. And so we're going to move that up right now. So you're on.
Thank you. So I don't know if everyone had a chance to kind of go over that additional packet that was provided. I think it was Mr. Kenyon from the city council and from joint management that reached out to you, Mr. Wedwick, about getting this on. So I guess the city's understanding that request for finding new space for sheriff storage would have to come out of here before it goes to property. Even though I'm aware property's talked about it a couple times over the last few years. Basically though, the problem we have here is the city and county jointly entered into this venture back in, I think, 2002, 2003, received almost $1 million in EDA funding to renovate the space at Gates Avenue and put in an infill building to connect to smaller spaces. And the whole purpose of that, as stated to the EDA and the understanding between the two entities, was to create space to promote economic development. Lease to manufacturers, lease for warehousing, private sector use in any case. 5R processors, for those of you that have been around, occupied that space for a decent chunk of the time until their issues caught up with them. And then, since then we've leased out kind of compartmentalized spaces within the larger 60,000 square foot facility. Approximately late 2018, county property, I believe it was, sold the sheriff's storage that was out in the South Industrial Park off of Barnett Road. And Andy Alvarado approached the Joint Management Committee about temporarily placing the Sheriff's Department storage out in an unused portion of Gates Avenue. I did provide a copy of an email from him sharing his recollection of that. If I dig deeper, I can find a bunch more, but I was hopeful that one would suffice. That it was sold as being a temporary occupancy that would yield to the private sector. Here in 2025, that occupancy is still occurring. And realistically is a violation of the EDA funds that the city and county signed our names to. So in addition, just in looking back, it doesn't appear that rent has ever been paid by the Sheriff's Department for that facility. I see, looking in past county budgets, I believe property has a budget line for sheriff storage that has just shown all zeros for the past 5-6 years. The Sheriff's Department itself, I believe, has a line item titled Gates Avenue Utilities, which I think has shown zero for the last few years. In the meantime, the Gates Avenue building has taken losses, which have been covered out of the county's mining fund, which is a fund designated for economic development activities. And this is no offense to the Sheriff's Department at all, but I guess I don't view the Sheriff's Office as economic development any more than I view the City Police Department as economic development. Even just going through the EDA rules, government usage by the grant recipients isn't allowed. It's meant for private sector use. It's been brought up a number of times, and the response has always been, well, we don't have a place to put them. All right, well, can you look for a place? Yeah, we'll look into it. And months go by, years go by, and the discussion comes back up, and we have the same issue. One of the attachments I included in the email was a building over in Bruce that I had shared back when Andy was here. I shared it again with Jeremy Kozlowski when he was the interim for a few months, and then shared with Miss Heath shortly after she started here, about a 13,000 square foot block building over in Bruce. I believe property actually talked about that once in August of 2022, but didn't take any action on it. That property sold in 2023 for $120,000. The new owner has since put a new roof on it, given it a paint job, and fixed up some stuff on the inside. I had inquired a couple different times with the new owner, and they're willing to sell. They're looking for a little more than the $120,000. They're in about the $350,000 range. Now, I don't know what it takes to put a new rubber roof on a flat roof building or paint a new building. Probably doesn't add up to $230,000 in difference, but as we're all aware, demand for properties and property values have gone up decently in the last couple of years. Still though, $350,000 for 12 to 13,000 square feet seems like a pretty good deal when you look at some other expenditures in that neighborhood that have been approved here recently for much smaller buildings in the fair. So just kind of wondering where we go from here, wondering if you have any questions of me. I guess the other thing I failed to point out, I started to touch on it with the lack of rent being paid for a third of that building on Gates Avenue, is that it, has suffered losses covered by your mining fund. But in the meantime, I've heard complaints on the county end about how these properties aren't making any money and how we need to raise rents on them to the private sector to cover these losses. How can you, in good conscience, charge more to the private sector while you're willingly foregoing rent on a third of one of your larger buildings that's set up for an industrial use. It just doesn't make sense to me. At the previous rate, when sheriff's occupancy started, I believe we were charging about $2 a square foot and then some prorated money for utilities. In the last year, joint management set a new rent across the board of $3 a square foot with no additional for utilities. But you take that, even just looking at, 2019 to now in 2025, you're willingly missing out on $40,000 to $60,000, just rough estimates per year that you could have realized on that building that could go to pay off debt, could pay for a number of things. And I understand that would come out of the sheriff's department budget and the tax levy, but what would we do if someone in the private sector using one of those same spaces hadn't paid their rent in years or in months?
I think we've run into that on a couple of things.
Yeah. Eventually we chase them out and get somebody in there, that's paying and providing stuff. And that's not a knock on anything the sheriff's department does. They serve a very important purpose here in the community, and I totally get that. At the same time, though, their storage needs aren't really joint management's concern. They're not my concern. They're sort of your concern here, and then property's concern.
I guess I just have a couple quick questions in the information that you gave us.
Yes.
Thank you for all that. Stipulations of the grant when originally got and everything, hasn't that time expired?
The listed time has expired. There should have been some sections of CFR that were included in there that are referenced in the contract.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the time limit has expired on all of that. I mean, as far as, for the purpose of the grant and like that. And
Yeah,
I couldn't figure out from the times that were in there, that I did go through and read them. What has the time, 15 or 20 years, and that was 2003. I mean, 23 would have, and so I guess I'm just asking the question of where.
correct. Yeah, so if you had looked on 314.4, that references unauthorized uses of property. 314.10 though is procedures for release of federal interest, and this is referenced in the contract.
Right.
At the expiration of a project's estimated useful life, and upon written request of a recipient, the assistant secretary may release the federal interest in project property if EDA determines that the recipient has made a good faith effort to fulfill all terms and conditions of the investment assistance. So the way that reads is,
Right.
you reference the dates, and there's conflicting dates. There are 15 years on one document, 20 on another. But the release has never been requested.
Okay, that was my next question.
Correct. So the way that reads, it's still in force.
And so who would apply for the release, both the city and county?
The city was listed as the lead applicant, and the county signed on,
Okay, so it'd be the city.
Yep.
Okay.
And I will tell you, like I told joint management, I'm not putting my name to that and saying that we used it for the purposes we told them we'd use it for. Because I don't feel like going to prison. I don't feel like being the city forced into paying any of the $908,000 back. And I don't think the county would want to do that either. I understand you guys have some big capital projects coming and some expensive design work coming that, almost $1 million to take a decent chunk out of. Not to mention probably getting blacklisted for federal funds in the current climate that we're in, where a lot of federal funding is under scrutiny.
So Oh, who did you hear about that? It had to come through this committee before property could do anything. I guess I've never heard that. Well, you had told me that, but I hadn't.
Yeah, it was mentioned at the last joint management meeting, and Miss Heath, I don't know, I don't recall who stated that, if you recall.
I don't recall.
Likely though, Mr. Coggins or Mr. Biller, they were the two county reps on the board at the time. Mr. Goodis had passed away, I think, by the time of our last meeting, so his spot was unfilled.
So what is it exactly that you're requesting of this committee to?
To authorize looking for a new suitable location to fit the sheriff's department's evidence and tactical vehicle storage needs. Preferably to expedite it. I know the wheels of government turn slowly. But another thing to look at here right now, all our joint management facilities are filled. We have one that's actually coming due here shortly that'll be out, that'll free up 10,000 square feet, but otherwise everything's filled with paying tenants in the private sector except for the sheriff's department section. Now with the tariffs and trade wars going on, regardless of your views on those, there are companies and even some of our local companies, are looking to shift additional production stateside or to stockpile materials that they get from foreign countries and build up a stockpile of those stateside to get on the front end of any tariff increases. And again, we're looking at over $60,000 in revenue just on that section of building alone, which can go a long way in replenishing.
How many square feet is that? That the sheriff is?
Approximately 22,987 square feet.
22,927.
987. I do have, and it's a front and back copy. I don't believe this got included, but this was a notification that I had sent to Sheriff Wallace last October. Was that management voted to start charging everyone in that building rent. So that the sheriff's department was aware of this at budget time, that they were gonna be charged rent starting in January and date, and I haven't seen this month's joint management report, but no rent has been paid on that section. So we'll be going on 6 months as of June 1st.
Okay, so your request is to keep moving on new location. Do committee members have any questions for Mr. Christensen? Because I think he provided a lot of documentation and everything that what he talked about was all there, and he highlighted a lot of it, so you didn't have to read every page. But are there any questions for him?
Terry, I'd like to make a comment. Even though I'm a non-voting member, I was a member of the property committee for the county. When the property changed hands, when the sheriff went out of that building on the road.
Was that Gustafson building?
Yeah, Gustafson, not.
And before the sheriff opted out of that building, we put the security fence around it. We made a site visit because the building was too small. Phil, I think you were on board then. But Mr. Hauser, Mr. Rassak, me, and a couple other guys were on the committee. So there's two bids. Highest bid was from the city and the other one was from Lemke Oil. We voted to go with Lemke Oil and keep it in the private sector. That tax base. With the $150,000 in the general fund. We were gonna look for a building. That was way back then. By God, hey, still, we don't have a building. Phil, you were on board then when we were there. And we even made site visits, stuff like that. And then we agreed, hey, let's move it temporarily into the 5R building. That was, like you said, that was 5-6 years ago. by God, you know, every time it came up, we were looking at a building over in Glen Flora and stuff like that.
Mm.
And actually, you know, the property committee from the county was gonna pursue a different site with the sheriff's department. And we never did, you know, I never did find a final site, but you know, that, you know, it was all above board, you know what I mean? We had good intentions. We put the $150,000 back in general fund back then, you know, if they get it, build a building or do whatever, never got done. Just wanted to give you an update. I'm one of the few surviving. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
I have one question. Is the building that the window company that went out of business east of here, is that,
Sheldon?
yes. So could that be a site?
Well, they would be storing fleets and fleets and fleets and I mean,
Not big enough?
oh, it's way too big.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Zeldwin is,
We fit all of this in there,
yeah, it's huge.
some 1,000 feet.
Yeah, it's huge.
Same thing, they're trying to market that and sell it. I mean,
It is available.
they're trying to market it to get something, come back here, yeah.
Thought,
Yeah.
Okay, well, since I'm also on property, and since you've presented this, we can try and start greasing the wheels, trying to get some more action done moving forward. When John called and just said, or I think it was Phil that told me to put it on here. You know, we just said a presentation, you know, but we don't have an action item on here.
Yep. No,
No, so we can look in there and put it on for next month and see also with property, you know, to move forward. Because that's in effect your request to do something. Because you do have somebody who wants that space now. Or that, well,
we've had people over the years kick the tires on it. I can tell you the paper mill's been gobbling up space in there as it comes available. So, yeah, I think it would be very easy to market and fill it. That's the other issue right now. You know, you're kind of holding something, and again, not a knock on the sheriff's department, but the approach has kind of been, well, if somebody wants it, then we'll work on finding a space for the sheriff's department. Well, if you're a business and you decide you want to do something, you know, now or within the next 3 months, and you get an indefinite, you know, well, we'll try to be out by 3 months, but we can't guarantee it. Are you going to stick around here? Are you going to go down the road to Barron County or Chippewa County? Or it's easier to market and fill a place if it's empty.
well, or if
Move
it's
in,
going to be available right away.
Yeah, if you have a set date. So
Okay,
that's the
Another
other.
question. Hey, my question is about the release
Yes.
from the EDA grant. Whether it's 2018 or 2023, there's some confusion, I guess. If it's 2023, it's already been 2 years that we could have been released from it. If it's 2018, it's been 7 years since we could have been released from it. What does that process look like? What are we plan on doing there? You've said that you don't want to put your name on it.
Correct.
So if you aren't willing to put your name on it, why can't someone from the county put their name on it and send that letter to be released?
Again, you're putting yourself at risk, I guess, of being dishonest to the federal government. Because you have to provide them a letter that basically reiterates a lot of the information they already have, which is kind of onerous, but it's just bureaucracy. Tell us what we did for you, even though we know what we did for you. So you have to tell them the date you got the funding, the amount of funding, the proposed use of the funding, and then you have to say that, you know, we swear on this, that, and the other thing that we used it for what we said we would for the duration. And that's where the hangup is, because the sheriff's usage and, you know, besides you guys, the spare ambulance, the medical examiner's van, and a bunch of highway trucks were stored out there for a time too.
That start in 2018.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So
Yeah, I've got photos of highway department trucks, lawnmowers, just miscellaneous crap, just strewn about.
if the county started using that building for storage in 2018, and if the EDA grant expired in 2018, I guess I don't have any documentation to say it was 2018, but that's a number that's been said. If it expired in 2018, we started using it in 2018, wouldn't that put us in compliance?
It's, the agreement's still in effect until the release is requested.
So
According to the federal guys.
so we maybe should have requested the release in 2018.
Yeah, that's possible, that should have been done.
If the 15-year is the right one or the 20-year,
Correct, yeah.
that we'd have to look at. But his point is that, but I'm wondering if you say that mea culpa, you know, and state in there that it was used for government purposes, even though it says it's not supposed to be for government purposes. You know, if they know that, they may be willing to release it too, you know, we don't know. I mean, we don't want to wave a red flag in front of them either,
Right.
you know.
And again, at the end of the day, the whole reason that property is even jointly owned, even got the funding, is because a group of folks from the county and a group of folks from the city got together and said,
Economic
we
development.
need to use this for economic development. I didn't catch your financial presentation last night, but I listened in on some other ones. You know, if you've got population loss, how do you combat that? You bring in jobs, you bring in economic activity. If nothing else, it helps increase property values. You know, maybe a few more buildings are built, houses are built. There's your net new construction. There's additional levy coming into the county, possibly the city, one of the townships, villages, you know, wherever. Not all development has to happen here in the city by any means. As Mrs. Voss noted, Hawkins has a glaring need right now. You know, that's impacting their village, the water utility, probably at some point their property taxes if it sits vacant and gets a lower valuation, and just people visiting the village. So I think that, yeah, we need to get a bit more aggressive on our economic development. That building out there is set up for that. It's got loading docks, which I don't believe the sheriff's department needs access to. You know, real high walls, high ceilings, big overhead doors. It's sitting there very underutilized, at least in my personal opinion.
Okay, any other?
Have you had any offers on it since the county has started to use it?
We've had, yeah, people come through.
I mean, if I walked in that building, one of the things, the smell, I would not go there.
Oh, yeah, no, it's in pretty poor shape overall, which is, you know, another thing we promised to do in these documents was keep stuff up in good condition, and that hasn't been done. And I understand that you can't just let contractors in there, you know, without a deputy or somebody present because of the sensitive nature of stuff that's in there. But I think that does lead to some stuff getting let go that's, whether it's black mold, leaking ceiling that's causing water damage to ceiling tiles or any of that, or yeah, just the stale stagnant air from stuff sitting for long periods of time.
Did you send that letter out to us? Because I had a copy of the letter and I can't find it. I don't know where it went. I have a cat who likes running across my computer once in a while, hitting the wrong keys.
I didn't find it. It was from Brenda.
Yeah, it's should have been in your packet.
Yeah, there was a whole package, a separate one.
That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm saying. There's cat for it again, because it's happened before.
Monday at 1:20 PM.
Okay.
I got it into this building where it went from there. Outside of my
Cat's paw.
You just go to the agendas and
minutes portion, that it'll be there. You know, the whole packet will be,
I see.
it's even just if you go to the county's website and go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked the Ladysmith Police Chief yesterday, I asked him a question in the office here. I said, Kevin, if you guys have, let's say tonight, you guys have a homicide by intoxicated use of motor vehicle case. Where somebody kills somebody with a motor vehicle, where is the city police department going to store up to 2 vehicles for 1 to 4 years? And he goes, Gates. Because the PD doesn't have any place to store anything either, but they would have to store those in Gates.
And I offered the chief of space. It's not inside and heated.
Where's that at?
We have a fenced in area out at a wastewater treatment plant. It's gated and locked. I mean, it would take some, you know, there's power there, so you could put cameras up. I mean, there's available power and cameras. It would take some work, but I mean, that we could create an exterior, not a heated and climate controlled and whatever. And I don't know if that's necessary or not, but I mean, it's not perfect, but it could be workable.
So the problem, like with a homicide case and outdoor storage, is
I understand.
sometimes in homicide cases, you need to go back weeks or months later to relook at some evidence, and that would possibly be.
I understand. It's washed away, the rain washes away and whatever. I mean, I understand.
I mean, a building, a heated building to store sensitive crime evidence is pretty important. And we did look at several, it's been years ago, several different buildings in the city too. We toured. Were you still here? Fritz, and I think we even toured, I don't know, we toured 5 or 6 buildings to see if they would work. But nothing would really work.
He said that they have looked at other buildings. Were you still here when they looked at maybe Fritz and some of the other buildings in the city or storage? Were you on the
Yeah,
board
well,
then?
and then we actually branched out. We looked at the one in Glen Flora, you know, where they're doing
And it's important.
now
It's
it's in 5R.
Yeah, it's important to, because we go out there so often, because there is a lot of evidence out there, to have a building somewhat close to the sheriff's department. Otherwise, we're gonna be spending time and gas driving to Glen Flora, driving to Weyerhaeuser, driving to Sheldon. Instead of a 4-minute trip, it'd be a 15-minute, 20-minute trip one way. So it is important as far as efficiencies to have something in the city of Ladysmith or somewhere relatively close to the sheriff's department.
Well, how big is it that you're looking for?
Well,
What do you need for something like that?
the area of Gates, right, did you say it was 22,000 square?
22,250, give or take,
987.
987.
We could go a little smaller, but not much. There's been several times. So that Gates building, it's kind of split in half. The front half of it is our evidence vehicle storage, and the back half of it is where we keep our Humvee, our patrol boat, our snowmobile and trailer, our UTV trailer, undercover vehicles. When we get new squads every year, we don't park them out here. We go park them in Gates just to keep them inside, just prevent. We've had some complaints from the public before. Why you guys have 3 brand new squads sitting in the parking lot? Whatever. So we just keep them out of view. So they do sit out there, depending on when we can schedule squad changeovers and decals and all that stuff. They might sit out there for a couple months before we can actually get them changed over and into the working fleet. There's offices out there that we use for smaller evidence, from burglaries, from thefts, from all that kind of stuff. There's a back room out there that has Ladysmith wrestling mats in it. We use that room for training, for DAT training, defense and arrest tactics. We just did that a couple months ago. We got some old wrestling mats from Ladysmith High School, and we throw those out, and the guys do, you know, escort holds and techniques training, handcuffing training, ground fighting. We use Gates probably at least twice every winter for training. We like to use that because it's 50 some degrees in there. and we don't have to do it outside. So every year for sure, we do all of our less lethal training in there in January, February, with the police department. So we utilize that building quite a bit in the winter for training our deputies and officers too, because we do have that statutory requirement of getting a certain amount of hours of training in every year. But to your ask, Sue, do we need 22,000? No, we could go a little bit smaller, but not a whole lot. Because oftentimes that vehicle evidence area is almost full. And I think there's 12 spots for evidence vehicles out there. But there's vehicles out there right now that have been there for 3-4 years. Can't get rid of them. Because the case might be done, but the appeals process isn't out. So sometimes we sit on vehicles for 3-4 years. We don't want to. We'd love to get rid of them after a year or two, but we can't.
Another question for Al.
Yes.
How much per month approximately do you make from the private sectors in rent?
Oh, yeah. This will just be a ballpark.
Sure.
I have the numbers in front of me, but, if annually, you guys would be about 60,000 and you take up about a third, then there'd be another 120,000 annually. So I would say about 10,000 per month if I'm doing my math correctly. Just out at that location. We have 7, 8 total joint managed buildings, which I believe other than the ones that are sitting vacant right now are all in the black. And even the vacant ones for that infill project we're doing, the city is actually reimbursing the county mining fund for the carrying cost of those for the utilities. So those should essentially be in the black. And I don't know, and it's a couple minutes and I'll have to get going here, but I can certainly come back if needed. To Sheriff's point about needing to be local here, I don't know out at your highway shop if you have seasonal vehicles that are stored inside there or anything. I guess I'd assume you do it at some level because some used to be out in gates seasonally. But maybe, an offsite out of town location for seasonal vehicles and equipment would be appropriate, which could then free up space out at the highway shop to store those emergency vehicles that you need access to right away. When it, obviously though, yeah, when somebody calls 911, I assume sheriff's department answers, the ambulance answers, whether they're right here in Ladysmith, way on the edge of Hawkins over in Weyerhaeuser. We are, you're a countywide organization, but that would maybe be my thought in the interim is looking, if you can find a site, even if it's outside of the city, maybe there's seasonal vehicles and equipment that would be better stored in a location like that to free up space that's right here in town.
Thank you.
Out all available space at Christie Mountain.
There is not. It's squashed.
And that,
I just have a really quick question. You were saying how bad that building is? Me and,
air quality.
okay, I was just wondering, how can we store evidence in a building that's so bad?
The air quality is not gonna,
Okay,
Sorry,
it was just, yeah, and I mean, it
it
just.
stinks and it's dirty, but as far as like storage, it works fine.
Okay. That was just a curious question, sorry.
Phil, when we did this, started this project years ago, Terry, the Weyerhaeuser School, Lane Chevrolet and Bruce, we looked at a bunch of buildings. But the thing is, when I look at it now, you even look at the one right out here on the highway next to the highway shop. It was empty for a while. Lamodor bought it. But the big thing is, every one of these buildings we looked at, there's productive people in there. There's businesses where if we would have built back then just a specific building for the sheriff's department, like you said, it could be 18,000 feet, somewhere close to town. And you know what? wouldn't have took away from any of these other businesses. Cause some of them were empty buildings back then. Now all of a sudden they're productive places. We could have had our own place, our own building. And you know what, would have been a hell of a lot cheaper than $300,000-$400,000 if we took the 150 back then and do something with it. So when you look back, any site we would have took back then, we would have actually took away from another business. You know what I mean? Really and truthfully, now when you look in the future. So really and truly, I think eventually you're gonna have to have a building that fits your needs. You know what I mean? Close to town, in the center of the county, where you can run from the courthouse here back and forth, and you have it. One package, like you said, it could be set up for training and everything. So that's my goal on it.
There would be the one other thing I'd offer, just real quick, is the city does have a nice new rec center. You know, a gym that got refurbished, a cafeteria that got refurbished, so as far as those December, January trainings.
Elementary school.
Yeah, the
Old
old
elementary.
elementary school. Yeah, I'm sure we would happily make that space available for takedown, less than lethal trainings like that, especially if the city PD was involved in those, you know, no charge to anyone.
Okay, I know you've got to go. So, okay, why don't we look at something maybe on the agenda for next time, next month? And one thought is, since the city was the lead on signing these agreements, maybe you could have the city attorney look at that. How would you, from a legal thing to get, to sign off on it, to get the release of the funds? Like you said, I know what you're talking about. But maybe since you are the lead on that, maybe the city attorney could look into that and see, well, how do we approach this, or check out federal level, or, whatever, what needs to be done so that we could get a release on it and everything. Like you said, you don't want to sign it the way it is right now because of that, but that's why you gotta get some legal opinion on that. So maybe the city attorney could look into that, since it'd probably be you, since you were the lead.
Correct, and he's given the city his opinion on that we're still under it. And the city have done 2 releases now on properties that we solely own that were funded with EDA. So we've gone through the process here
Okay,
in the last 12 to 24 months.
yeah, so but maybe he's got some suggestions, or how do we approach it, or how do you do it to get the release?
Mhm.
So you could check that out from your end.
Yep.
With them. Okay, anybody else? Mr. Christensen has to leave. Any other questions? So we'll look at this for new locations and other things, consider other things, and maybe get this on the agenda, and then also to property, but try and get moving on it.
Yeah. Last thing, I guess, I don't know what your plans for the old clinic are, but I think that's somewhere north of 10,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Possibly.
possibly.
Just throwing that out.
Okay.
Thank you. If you do have any questions, feel free to email them to me. I can't respond a whole lot to you because I don't want you guys to get into a walking forum, but email them to me and I'll at least get answers put together and can maybe email them to the chair and he can disseminate as needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to medical examiner. Sorry for the delay, but he had to go, and we want to get everything in here, and then we get Tom in, so he was on all day.
Of course, I made a mistake on the top of my statistics. It still says March, it should say April. But for the month of April, we had 5 natural deaths. The 6 cremations, 7 hospice deaths, and 2 donations. And I'm still doing online training. This, last month was, gunshot injury. Let's see what if we have really any issues as of now. No invoices. And all my budget. Think I don't have any issues with that either.
I guess just one thing on your budget report. You've got to fill out the projected expenditures and the projected revenues,
Okay,
and that's blank. So next time, or
do I just,
generally, I mean, okay, like for the budgeted, you have the actuals for the historical. And this is a new thing. Everybody's going to be making a lot of mistakes. So for the budget expenditures, like for this year, 78,945. Year to date, you've got 9,000. Projected expenditures, well, if you expect to spend about the same amount, you don't want to really cut it short. You would put 78,945. And for revenue, you got 6,000, you got 975 in there. Now, if you got $12,000 and some grant or something that got thrown in there or something, then you could include that in the projected revenues, but otherwise you would put in the budgeted thing unless you know it's going to be way, way off.
okay,
So both the budgeted and the projected would be the same unless you know there's something, and you've got checked here, no concerns. So, well, I mean, where's the speaker? So,
okay.
and then I'll have to have you
Yeah, sign.
sign this one.
And I'll make sure I sign it before I send it.
Are there any questions? Okay, any questions for her? And otherwise, I will need a motion to approve the bills,
Zero bills.
0 bills.
Look good.
Yeah.
Second that.
Yeah.
We all dare to dream.
Okay, anything else that you have?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I can choose. So yeah, like I say, these new budget. See. Finance will have more fun. Okay, the motion is made and seconded to approve,
But we need one for the budget.
to approve the bills. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Then I also need a motion to approve the budget report.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the budget report. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, sheriff's report.
Okay, sheriff's department for April, our ADP was 25. We had one on EMP and there's 2 out of county. They're out of county because they're on EMP in different counties. This is the trainings. Delky went to the annual required ATV snowmobile patrol, Stevens Point. Krista and Monica went to an open records training in Altoona. Homestead went to the annual Law Enforcement Tactical Officers Association Conference, which he goes to every year. Jack Dykeman went to a white collar crimes investigation training. And myself, Sergeant Anderson, Sergeant Bueller, and Chief Deputy Wycheck went to the Law Enforcement Management Conference in Hayward, which we go to every year. Upcoming trainings, Deputy Tuma is going to go to the TAC validation training that we are hosting in Ladysmith. Several other counties are coming for that. And Deputy Heater is going to go to basic SWAT in Green Bay because he's our latest addition to our ERT team.
Did he just get through the academy or no? He's been here.
He's been here for a year, 2 years. 2 years.
Move training motion.
It's a, yeah, good enough, whoever.
Okay, meetings attended. We had our weekly radio project meeting, ad hoc construction, a board meeting, department head meeting, emergency services, joint management, committee on committees, personnel, finance, and mental health subcommittee. Our law enforcement memorial is this month. It is on the 21st at 7 PM down at Memorial Park. We encourage you all to attend. Bring your friends, bring your family, bring your neighbors. Next is the calls for service. Would you have any particular questions on the numbers so far for 25?
Anything you want to call our attention to, anything? Yep.
No, nothing that's striking me as way out of the ordinary, no. Going, the next page is patrol overtime for the month of April. And then the jail overtime encompasses the next 2 full pages.
I like the way you say that. And then, yeah,
Good luck getting any new recruits, any new hires, say.
We, Deputy Doug Baker was just released from jail FTO. Not dispatch FTO, he hasn't started that yet, but he's working shifts on his own in the jail. Unable to dispatch yet, though. We have another deputy that's a female that's currently in FTO. She's in her 3rd week, I think. 3rd week. So she has at least 3 more weeks left of that. We had interviews and have extended conditional offers to 2 males. One of them has turned his background packet in, still waiting for the other one. And HR has posted last week, I think she did, for a female. We're still looking for a female. So as long as nobody leaves, we're hoping to be full staffed by the end of the summer. However, we will still have at least 5 that we'll have to put through the jail academy. And we'll still have to get several of them through dispatch FTO.
the jail academy takes
5 weeks.
5 weeks, so they'll be short then.
Yeah. So when you send someone to the jail academy, you have to fill their shifts with overtime. Somewhat positive note, Deputy Casca is done with college for the year in a few days. So he will be coming back and working as a reserve and taking a bunch of shifts in the jail this summer.
That's positive.
And he has 1 more year of college left. So we should have him middle of May through of August. Shifts in the jail,
What's he going to college for?
law enforcement. So, we are very hopeful that he will work for our department when he's done with college and done with the academy.
Is he from the area?
Born and raised, mother works in the courthouse. So, we're hopeful with him. Does an excellent job, very good job.
Okay, before moving on, motion was made and seconded to approve the training requests, but we never continued on that. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried.
Sorry, I go too fast sometimes.
Payment of the bills next thing, or do you have more?
No. Unfortunately, we do have some bills this month.
No zero?
So 0.
Learn from the net.
We will work on that moving forward.
Yeah. It's gotta eat, I suppose.
They do have to eat.
What happened to the canine dog?
Leo had some unexpected health issues. So there was X-ray, there was CAT scan, there was surgery, there was a specialty visit in Minnesota at the University of Minnesota Vet Hospital. We are hopeful that they're cleared up now.
He has an MRI coming.
He still has one, yeah, but we originally thought the original vet in Eau Claire
Chautauqua.
Tech thought that he may possibly have some sort of spinal issue going on. But after, help me remember, after Minnesota, that was kind of possibly
So
ruled out.
possibly, he had a neurological exam at the University of Minnesota, but then had some digestive issues, which is why he had surgery in Eau Claire, where they thought it had something to do with his pancreas. So he's on medicine for pancreatitis. But now they were just kind of reintroducing him back into training, and he had the same reaction with, he turns his head a certain way is when he yelps in pain. So now he has an MRI to see if they can look deeper past what the neurological exam was.
How old is the dog?
3.
Yeah.
Just started.
Mhm.
Was that the bills that were in animal shelter?
No,
That's a different dog? Oh, we got expensive dogs in this county.
It's,
I think that person
Similar.
might be in your jail, but
it,
it's.
yeah, it's related to the sheriff in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
like to bring our canine to the animal shelter, because it's a lot cheaper than going to,
I'm just curious because what you're describing is sort of what, yeah,
no.
layman can see in the,
Yep. There, I think he's also on some sort of gut health supplement
Mhm.
to try to.
Probiotic.
Yeah.
Doggy probiotic.
They must give you some kind of a break, because I mean, $1,500 doesn't seem.
This is not all of them. The Chautauqua Animal Shelter or Animal Hospital always gives us a break, even when he goes in just for his routine
Yeah.
checkups. They always do. Surprisingly, Eau Claire did not, and University of Minnesota did not.
Okay.
We applied for veterinary assistance through the National Police Dog Foundation to help offset this, but I haven't heard anything back yet.
And you guys will see that on our canine budget too.
Yeah, it's, well, what are you gonna do?
Beautiful dog.
And we have discussed as a department the possibility of looking into animal health insurance, because we've had canines for decades and decades. We've never really had the need for it until now. So, I mean, we could have been paying premiums for the last 20 years and never used it, but we've never really had health issues until Leo.
Naughty Leo. Okay, any questions on the bills? Okay, if not, then a motion to approve the bills.
Should approve.
second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the bill. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, budget review.
So moving forward, because this is the first time we've done this, you want me to go over every single page, or do you guys want to review and ask questions, or go over every page and then you guys ask questions, or how do you want to do it moving forward?
I think because you have quite a few, I guess some of these I would give back to you right now because you haven't checked if no concern. So if there is a concern, I guess we gotta know
Okay.
on that. Or I can quickly, you guys have it up.
Yeah.
You're reading them quickly. The first one is budget 210. Again, well, you've heard the discussion and everything that when you look at the budget information for this year, the budgeted expenditures and the budgeted revenues are off the statements. I mean, you know, what was budgeted and everything. And then year-to-date expenditures, year-to-date revenue would be what's been done. Well, this case would be through April. But then your projected expenditures and projected revenues would be, again, the total for the year. So it could be, but if you're way over, you know, that's why there's concern in what to do. You've got reason, well, this one, you've got 5-year agreement. Well, that's a concern,
Yeah, so that is,
Philman.
yep, for Spillman. So 5 years ago, we needed to find a new records management system because the one we currently had was, actually sold it, we're going out of business, couldn't maintain it, whatever it was, but we needed a new one. So we went with Spillman. And this is before Miranda was here, and this was before I had anything to do with budgets and contracts and all that kind of stuff. So we did some homework, a little bit of homework on it. And in 2020, when we signed our contracts with Spillman, our department and the county decided to pay upfront the 5-year maintenance agreement. So for the last 5 years, we've never gotten a maintenance agreement. All of a sudden, a week ago, a maintenance agreement shows up on Miranda's desk. And she's like, what is this for? I've never seen this before. Well, that was because we didn't know that our office in the county decided to pay the first 5 years upfront. So moving forward, every single year, we are going to have a $28,000 maintenance agreement or contract with Motorola or Spillman Flex. So when we got that $28,000 bill, we were kind of like, oh, shoot. How are we going to pay for this? Because we didn't budget for it. But if you go to the next page, you'll see all those numbers and all those different agreements, contracts, companies. That's for our tower upgrade. So we are going to have all of those bills due moving forward in our communications line. However, if you look at the second one down, fiber, it says $21.98 a month. That's for all the fiber that goes to our radio towers. Very right side says 26,376. We haven't paid $21.98 yet this year per month because that fiber is not being used yet because we haven't gone live with the new radio system. And we probably won't go live until sometime in June or July. So if you take $2,198 times 5, there's $12,000. If you go down further, the TerraPact, that's the tower lease for the new tower in Glen Flora, which is $1,000 a month. We haven't paid $1,000 a month yet this year because we're not using that tower yet. So there's gonna be another $6,000 that can help pay that $28,000 Spillman bill. So in the bills that we budgeted for communications, we think that we'll be able to find that $28,000 in those things that we budgeted for that we're not using yet.
Is that $28,000 that you're talking about here for the Spillman Flex? Is that per year or for 5 years?
Per year.
Per year.
So upfront, we paid $140 some thousand for 5 years.
Probably a little bit cheaper 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reach out to Motorola and see if we do pay 5 years upfront, if it's going to be a considerable cost savings. If it's not, I think we're just gonna pay it by year. But if we can save 10, 15% over 5 years by paying for 5 years, I think we're gonna look at doing that and bring it to you guys to see what your thoughts or opinions are.
Perfectly good.
It might have been just because you're a new customer. We don't know. We'll have to look into it. But if we can save 10, 15, 20,000, even $5,000 by paying it up front, I think that's something that we're gonna want to do.
So this on the second page, this amount is already in your budget.
We budgeted 136,000 total to
Okay.
accommodate all of the expenses you see below.
Right, okay, and so that's, you're gonna squeeze out the 28,000 in there.
We're gonna try to squeeze really hard.
Yeah.
For that 28,000.
Okay, so that's why, okay, so go through this quickly, I don't want, so that's why he didn't check the box and reason for concern there. So they've got over revenue. Okay, you want any other comments
At
on
the very bottom of that page, you see no 2025 expenses paid year to date for those three things. We believe that if we're doing the numbers correctly, of that 28,000, we can probably find 24-ish thousand to cover that 20 out of the stuff we already budgeted.
Well, like you just mentioned, yeah.
So there is a chance that we might be a couple $1,000s over. But we haven't looked at other lines towards the end of the year where we might be able to cover that $2,000, $4,000.
Okay, any other comments on 210 budget number? Okay, 211.
211 is our jail. I mentioned earlier that we do have a reserve deputy that's going to be here all summer. So we are hopeful that we can cover a lot of shifts at his reserve wage instead of at full-time rate.
So that's why you're showing projected expenditures being less for the year.
And we didn't have any out of county housing just like we did last year. It only shows 495 for year to date. I don't know how accurate that is.
Yeah, they're behind in getting stuff in. Any other questions on that one? Okay, moving on to the next. 40? Not much there.
240 is jail maintenance. I've had some discussions with Miranda why jail maintenance is its own tab. I guess I don't know when it was made its own tab. Jail maintenance is separate from jail. I don't know if you recall
It
if
was
before your
before my
time.
time.
Do any of you recall why jail maintenance is its own tab and is not in the jail budget? I don't know.
Probably just to segregate the costs so you know how much.
Maybe, but
I don't know.
you could have a line item in our jail budget for jail maintenance. And I asked Miranda this morning, I think it was, or yesterday, but maybe it's because we sometimes split bills with facilities. I don't know. I'm new to this.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't know, but it has its own tab.
Okay, and you've got, again, you haven't checked if no concern, so these are concerning items, but unexpected costs for Sally Port and working.
Elevator.
Yeah.
I think we got that bill in January and it was 4,600, I think.
Any other questions on that form? Okay, 214. Doggies.
Means the E9, and obviously
Yeah.
the medical bills were unexpected, but like Miranda said, we did reach out to that National Police Dog Foundation to see if they'll help cover any of those costs for us.
Yes, you will be old, probably. I mean, with, like you said, that, just that one bill and you haven't gotten the big ones yet.
Right. But keep in mind too that E9 budget doesn't hit the levy.
Those are donations.
And it's a rolling donations fund, so like we only budget 2,500, but we have like 47,000 in that fund.
Carry forward.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
yeah.
That's-
Yeah, I'm thinking on some of these things like that. you know, that there should be some notation or something that there is a carry forward fund or something, you know, that doesn't hit the levy.
Okay, so where do you want that on the form?
Down at the bottom.
Down at the bottom, yeah, you know, non.
Is other information?
Yeah, yeah. You could just put something down, just so we know, because the other ones that we've previously gone through are all levy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's that, and you could even put in that there's a budget. I mean, you know, what the carry forward is, or roughly too. I know I have problems with that with the animal shelter. Try and pull out the number, you know, that's a rolling carry forward, non-lapsing fund.
Yeah.
Okay, 214, 233.
233 is ATV patrol. Obviously, year-to-date expenditures are very low because summer just started. And again, it depends year by year, but anywhere from, I'm gonna say 68% to 52% of our rec deputies costs get reimbursed by the DNR. Same with boat, same with snowmobile.
Well, you've got no concerns there, so.
What do they base that, Phil? Do you know? Mileage of snowmobile trails, miles?
So every year, the DNR gets allocated a certain pot of money.
Okay.
And the DNR then, depending on how much money they get, and there's, let's say there's 68 of the 72 counties that do ATV patrol. The DNR then says, okay, this year with this pot of money, we're going to reimburse the sheriff's department's 58%. Okay, this year we have a little bit more money. We're going to reimburse the sheriff's department 64%. And then we have to get a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of contacts. So to be eligible for that reimbursement. So last year, snow patrol, there was no snow patrol. So departments didn't get reimbursed because there was trails weren't open. But yeah, we have to get a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of contacts.
What do you mean by contacts?
So the DNR has a rule where, let's say for boat patrol, you have to have 40 hours of boat patrol. But in that 40 hours, you have to have 12 contacts. Contacts are citations or warnings. So I can't have 14 warnings and 1 ticket. So it's been 10 years since I did this, but I can only have 3 warnings to 1 ticket, or 4 warnings to 1 ticket. I can't have, like I said, I can't have 20 warnings and 1 ticket. You have to have a certain amount of warnings per ticket to equal contacts. So what they're doing is they're holding you accountable for actually enforcing laws.
Yeah.
They're going to reimburse you.
That's the same thing for ATVs then too.
Yes, ATV, boat, and snowmobile. Yep.
Okay, so the same thing like for water patrol, no concerns that now, snow patrol, no concerns. These are these also non-levy?
There is some
There is
levy.
Some levy, okay,
So what doesn't get reimbursed by the DNR? It's our budget.
levy, okay. 229,
That is our wireless 911.
that's expenditures.
Dispatch, the phone system, the 911 system.
Line transfer with this.
That's gonna be in our communications line, correct? Yeah.
So this was one of those budgets where we're not really sure ever why it was its own budget. So at the end of 2024, when Sky and I were going over budgets, we talked about this and I said, why can't we just include it with our sheriff's communications budget? And she just said, yep, you can just remember when you're keying it in my for that bill, because it's 1 bill a month, $1,222. And I, out of habit, keyed it to that account, which is why there's over office.
So you're going to,
We'll just need to do a line item transfer between communications where it is budgeted for. It won't cause an over budget. It's just, it looks bad that we're over budget.
Moving forward, that'll be zeros.
Yeah.
yes. Okay. ESS 225. Concerns.
That was when Nancy Hahn was working in our department. But now she's full-time in the DA's office.
So is this just gonna go away, or I mean,
The budget amendment for that, if you will call it the end of 2024.
okay,
She's in our office until March. Is why there's some stuff for 2025, but if you're okay with it moving forward, this won't be part of our.
thanks for coming, Mike. Okay,
So moving forward, we won't have 225.
except we'll have some for this year.
Some from January to March.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's not working in our office anymore, so
Right.
this won't change.
Right.
We can keep it in the packet if you want it in there, otherwise
Yeah, I
it's maybe
guess,
kind of an unnecessary form at this point, as it will come from the DA's office.
as long as it's one of your budget numbers that will be in for this year. Gotta show it.
Okay,
Okay, 240,
40 is the emergency response team. And no concerns.
and again, this is levy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'd be good under other information to put no levy or partial levy or something like that. I mean, I think that explains it, help explain stuff.
We can do that for the ATV boat in Snowmobile too.
Yeah, you could put partial levy, possible partial levy or something like that. Yeah. Okay, so tax, okay, any questions on that? Okay, 221,
221, the BRDEU, that's our asset forfeiture stuff. So though all that money is used to, well, all that money is used to facilitate narcotics operations.
on the edge.
That's our department's version of DARE.
Right.
So our rec deputy goes into the schools and teaches EDGE. And it's
Edge, what is the acronym? What does it stand for?
It's a good question. Actually, Deputy Zilke made it up on his own several years ago. There was a fast fading program, countrywide, nationwide. So he kind of just personalized it himself and has been doing it for probably 7-8 years. But it's over now. It usually lasts from December, January to March, April. But he just had his end of the year parties with all the schools in the last couple weeks.
Oh, when he leaves, will somebody else take that over?
We'll have to look at that. We will. We'll have to seriously take a look at that because it's an expense to go into schools and teach when there's no measurable tool to decipher whether or not it's.
Okay, 236, shop with the cop.
Shop with the cop. We always need elves. If you guys aren't busy on that day to help us. We provide the hats.
you don't have to wear a hat.
The
But you-
green suit.
But you don't have Christmas in July either.
No, no.
Okay, 237.
Project Lifesaver, we put a little bit of money into that, but we never have anybody that wants to be on it. We've marketed it, social media, website, and We haven't had anybody on that program for years and years and
What
years.
is it? Or supposedly?
So let's say your mother has dementia and you're worried about her eloping because she's done it in the past. You come here, we have a deputy trained in explaining the program to you, putting the actual bracelet on your mother. And then if she does elope, we have equipment to be able to track her.
I think there would be a lot of people in Russ County.
But we just don't,
Admitting it.
Well, yeah.
maybe, but it's been years and years and years since we've had anybody on that program.
That's when we have like 4 units or something, or had 4 units.
We have, I think, at least 3 bracelets, but you buy this equipment and then it sits and doesn't get used and gets outdated. But then we're at the same time, well, if we get rid of this stuff, the next week, someone's gonna come to us and say, hey, we would love to put my grandma on this. And like,
Okay, any further questions on this budget report? Again, this is something that's going to be every month. And then it goes to finance. Everything to try and avoid any unpleasant surprises near the end of the year. So I'll entertain a motion to approve budget report.
I'll make,
A motion's made and seconded to approve the budget report. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Both say no. Motion carries. Okay, tower project.
Okay, so tower project, their projected go live date is sometime after Memorial Weekend. We're hoping June. When you have multiple companies doing multiple different things, I think we all know how that works. I waited for quite a while to get bids on doing all of the radio changeovers. So taking the old radios out, installing new radios, I just got that. So over the course of the next week or so, I'll be in communications with the ESC, trying to schedule the radio changeovers, which is, it's a pain because we have squads that have to be working on different days at different times. I'd like for DSC to only have to be here for 2 days. I need to look at the patrol schedule, see what shifts everybody's working, when we can have squad cars here. It'll have to be all done in the Sallyport. So we'll hopefully get that scheduled in the next week or two. Ashley, I wasn't at the weekly meeting. Was there anything else this week that isn't of any significance?
So we still haven't received the KVL. You did accept the quote from DS. Yep, and then Neil is going to be pulling new Cat 5 from dispatch down to the basement. So they said they could use what we already had, but it is incredibly antiquated and could end up messing with what is supposed to be a new, fast, wonderful system. So they asked Neil how laborious that would be, and he's like, gosh, that's gonna be a mess, because if you ever want to see into the ceiling of our jail, it's a disaster. But he was able to look at that this morning, and he says he can pull 2 new lines, which would be great because then everything will be updated.
And I think one of the companies was here last week pulling wires into the basement from the outside.
Is that for the 911 thing?
That's for PSAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's moving along. But I think when this whole process started with new towers, with microwave antennas, with all the fiber that's had to be buried, with waiting for companies to send us all the equipment, we knew it was gonna be probably a couple months after their original estimate. The winter put us back to for burying fiber. Are they done at the Glen Flora site? Did they say?
Yes, I think the only work they have left is doing the microwave stuff, right?
Okay.
Grant.
Say they received those dishes?
Yes,
Okay.
they just got them that day we had that call.
Because they've been waiting for those for quite a while.
Yep.
Okay. So we're hopeful June.
The whole system would be ready to go.
We're hoping to go live in June. That's what I'm super hoping for. Yes. June 1st, June 30th. not-
Yeah. You said June is what you said. so.
31st.
Yeah.
Okay, PSAP.
The PSAP, we applied for that grant. Heard back from them. I know, but there was that,
Round two, no.
no, okay. So there's 2 different rounds of the PSAP grant. We're still waiting to hear back from round 2. AT&T and Charter have been in the courthouse to map out what they need and get their bearings with our IT department. IT has done some upgrades in the building. The new equipment is supposed to also ship in June. See if it actually does. Projected end date is estimated for September of this year. We ran into a hiccup. So Neil talked about this really briefly to me as I had somewhere to go. I don't know if he talked to you more about it because you were there, but we had an issue with, we were unable to transfer a 911 call to Barron County. Because Barron County has already done the whole PSAP upgrade and we haven't. Which is a problem. And it's a problem, but hopefully once this is completed, that problem will go away. And then there's a new part of this PSAP grant. It's new throughout the state. Several counties and agencies already have it, but it's text to 911. So let's say you're in a house with the suspect, you can't call 911, but you can send a text. With this new PSAP upgrade, people in our community are going to be able to text 911. So most commonly, it'll probably be, I'm going to assume, domestic situations where they are scared to actually call, but they'll be able to send a text. So that'll be a part of that PSAP upgrade with that grant.
Are there ramifications for people misusing that?
Just like with calling, yes. So we actually have a county ordinance. We can write them a ticket, and if it continues, we can arrest them. Yeah, we've done it before, where we'll have someone that will continuously call 911 5, 10 times, and our dispatchers say, knock it off. And if it continues, then we send a deputy to the house, make contact with them, issue them a ticket. If they continue to do it, we'll arrest them because they're tying up 911 lines for no reason. But yes, that's happened in the past.
Is there any, I don't know what you want to call it, any possibility that the PSAP grant stuff would be canceled with all of these other, through the federal level and state level, they're canceling a lot of programs and everything like that?
Not that we've been made aware of. Nothing was told us.
I would more so anticipate that the round 2 that we applied for would more likely get denied than what the grant we're in right now
Okay,
being taken away.
what's round 2?
That is to upgrade everything to Wiscom, which
But
is part of the tower. That is like to communicate with the tower project.
so Wiscom is a statewide radio system. You've heard of, was anyone else not heard of Wiscom? Have you heard of it? Okay. Wiscom is a radio system in the state of Wisconsin. However, we don't use Wiscom because the state didn't put a tower in our county. So that's why we don't use it. The state, and this has been talked about for a few years now, the state wants to continue with the Wiscom program, but they understand they need to put a lot more towers in the state. There are some counties in Wisconsin that do use Wiscom, but that's because they have a tower or 2 in their county. We don't have a single tower in our county, so we've never used it. But if the state does proceed with the Wiscom project, this part two of this grant. If we didn't apply for this part two now, in the future, that would, all that cost and money would be on us as a county. So looking into the future, if we do get Wiscom, which is why we applied for the second part of the grant, should be better off than what we would be without applying for that grant with that equipment.
How many towers would Russ County require? Just one?
I'm not a radio guy, but I would say to effectively work, we'd have to have multiple towers in our county. Mhm.
Just like you guys, you need multiple towers to communicate, so
Yeah.
they need multiple towers.
I know there are counties that tried to use it because they do have a tower or two in their county and ended up going away from it because it wasn't enough. Didn't work.
So they can't, do they have to be their own separate towers, or can they put equipment on the new towers that we just put up?
I don't know. So Minnesota did this several years ago, but Minnesota did it right. So the state of Minnesota got in cahoots with all of the counties and said, all right, this is what we're gonna do, but we need you to kick in some money. Wisconsin didn't do that. Wisconsin wanted to do it on their own as a state. And I guess I'm assuming couldn't afford to do all the towers that were needed. So they kind of started doing it and realized that it's not gonna work. But Minnesota, if I'm in Duluth, Minnesota, as long as Mankato PD's radio channel is programmed into my radio, I can talk from Duluth to Mankato on my portable. Just because they did it right. It cost the counties a few $1 million to provide that financial assistance with it, but Minnesota did it right when they started. And Wisconsin just hasn't got there.
Is that the only thing that round two is for that?
For equipment for that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whether okay, it doesn't affect our towers or all the other
No.
communication stuff.
No.
That 911 dispatchers are gonna have to respond on text then?
So we have that rapid SOS system up in dispatch now. So when you call 911, it's gonna show your phone number. It's gonna show exactly where you're at, and if you're moving, it'll move with you. I guess I'm safely assuming that the text message is gonna come up on that rapid SOS system. Because that's our 911 system. So.
It'll be almost like a instant message. They won't be sitting and texting.
Not
It
on
will
their phone.
be Like an instant messaging portal, essentially.
Because as of right now, our dispatchers can, if you call on your phone 911 and you hang up, our dispatchers can type a message to your cell phone
Mhm.
on that system. Saying, this is the Rusk County Sheriff's Office. We received a 911 call from your phone. Is everything okay?
I'm just wondering, like a disturbance, family disturbance, whatever. Somebody gets down, they text it in, they'll be able to get a text back saying,
Yep.
That'd be-
So then our dispatcher will communicate with them via text.
Okay.
Like getting the information, where's your location? What's going on? Who is there? Is there any weapons involved? All that kind of stuff.
somebody jumps on the phone and destroys it.
True. But it'll just be an added
Yeah.
way for victims to be able to contact.
Once they dial in, the address is locked in regardless of what happens to that.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, any further questions on that form? Okay, what about Otto?
We need,
That's the text to 911.
Oh, that's the text 911. Okay. And we have that right now?
we need your approval to sign it. It's an agreement.
And any cost to that?
See that?
So the overall cost, the initial setup is 1,300 and change. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then each recurring year for the maintenance of that is a little over 1,000. If we do it in bulk, it's 10,000 and change. Kurt, do you have that?
Yeah.
So $10,580.87. Which we'll do a grant modification for to include this text to 911. Between some personnel changes, the Intrado contract got lost in the mix with the PSAP grant It should have been included. It was not included, so we will do a grant modification to include that and it will be covered by the grant, I would assume. I would be very shocked if it was not approved. Where we might run into a little bit of a hiccup is the PSAP grant is pretty specific that it is not to cover ongoing costs such as a maintenance agreement. In my interpretation of this, it's a one-time fee of $10,000. So then in 2030, the county will be responsible for that yearly maintenance. But I don't see why the grant wouldn't cover the initial install with the 5-year agreement
Because it's
for the
new.
10,000 because it's brand new.
It's
to
not,
us.
it's not a reoccurring cost.
It's subject to interpretation, I guess.
Okay. Any further questions on that? So you need a motion to approve the agreement?
Because it's new and I'll do a grant modification as well with that, but just so we have our bases covered.
And otherwise, it would be coming out of the sheriff's budget again.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve, Ricardo text 9. But, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All say no. Motion carried. Back to Motorola. Spillman.
Right. That's my agenda.
That's the best. Full agreement, school and flex maintenance. Nothing else in the packet.
Over the old school paper form.
$28,407.
So that's the bill that we talked about with the sheriff's budget.
Oh, the one
That
that you're gonna
communications
get out of
budget.
the,
Yep,
Yes.
You can.
yeah, you were gonna get most of it anyway out of unexpended expenditures for the new tower project.
Correct, that were budgeted and not used.
Yeah.
Cause you got January, February, March, April, May, probably.
Mhm.
So if we don't go live in June,
You'll cover it.
Yes. So because this is a unforeseen expense and essentially a new agreement. We need to.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded to approve the Motorola agreement, the Spillman / Flex maintenance. More discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carried. Okay, anything else? Ashley, do you have anything? Okay, next meeting date, June 11th at 8:00. Again, that's the second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, on my calendar.
Okay, everybody's got that? Okay, if nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:56. Thank you all for coming.
I'm back. I'm back. The chief emailed me and said. Your fencing area, our new shop at Summit and impound area.